Hello and welcome to the EcoCast. Today's topic is the key trends in data protection and storage from flash to HCI to composable. We're joined by friends from Atempo and Cohesity, as well as you out there in the audience. Thank you so much for joining us on this EcoCast event. My name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator for today's EcoCast. We've got a great event lined up for you today. The experts from Atempo and Cohesity have some really cool presentations. They'll be talking about their latest and greatest innovations around data storage and data protection as well. So before we jump into it, just a little bit of housekeeping information that you need to know about. Of course, we have some prizes, as we always do, on the EcoCast. I'll be talking about those in just a moment. We also want this to be educational. I see tons of comments and good morning messages coming in from everyone across the United States and around the world. So thank you so much for those. Of course, we also encourage your technical questions because I'll be doing dedicated Q&A sessions with each of today's expert presenters, and we want to hear what your challenges are and, ask these presenters how their solutions can help you to solve your storage challenges that you're facing in your IT organization today. So keep those technical questions coming. We also want this to be social. You can tweet directly from the console. The hashtag for today's event is ATMEcoCast over on Twitter. And then we also have a number of resources, one resource from Atempo and another from Cohesity in your console. You can download those now and check them out after the event. There's a really cool PDF here from Atempo on planning the migration of your unstructured data, as well as a Cohesity solution brief on Cohesity's smart files beyond scale-out NAS. So go ahead and download those now, and you can check them out after today's presentation. We'll be awarding 3 Amazon $500 gift cards on the event. You must be live in attendance to qualify. I'll be announcing the prize winners verbally after each of today's presenters. The requirements are you must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and the full prize terms and conditions can be found there in the Handouts tab. Now, Actual Tech Media has been donating to Direct Relief $500 for every EcoCast, MegaCast, and Summit event that we run until COVID-19 is beat. And, of course, we encourage you to do that as well. Just by supporting these events, you are indirectly supporting Direct Relief. So thank you again for your support and for attending today. Like I said, the hashtag on Twitter is ATMEcoCast. We'll be tweeting about the event throughout, and you can follow Actual Tech Media on Twitter. And hey, that's me, David M. Davis. You can follow me as well on Twitter. I love to tweet about the latest and greatest in enterprise tech, including what you'll be learning on the event today. You can subscribe to Actual Tech Media's social channels. On the top right-hand side of your console there are icons for YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. You can also subscribe to the Actual Tech Media 10 on Tech podcast over in the iTunes Store. We've been posting all of our latest and greatest content over on LinkedIn, so of course make sure that you follow us there. Now, before I jump into the introduction of today's first presenter, I've got just a short keynote here to set the stage, and then a couple of poll questions. So I'll be sharing the results of those poll questions with you. But first, let's talk about the key trends in data storage from flash to HCI to composable. I mean, this is an exciting time to be in IT because we have so many innovations coming out, and storage is really a hot area. I mean, we've got greater densities, so greater storage capacities, higher performance, just incredible performance that you can get out of flash today, a lower cost per gigabyte or terabyte than ever before. And to me, some of the most exciting stuff is, what these companies are doing with software. Just amazing new features that you could do with software. And I know that both of the presenters on the event today will be honing in on that, specifically what their really intelligent storage software can provide for you in the way of efficiency and greater data availability. So when it comes to what to look for in new solutions like the solutions you'll learn about on today's presentation, just a few tips here. I mean, the first one is to have a goal in mind, of course. You want to make sure that if you're going to invest the money in a new storage solution, you need to have a goal for that solution. And you don't want to just buy it based on the pretty faceplate on the front of it and the cool blue lights that flash and blink. You need to think about first, of course, what you're trying to accomplish for your company and for your IT organization. What are the pain points that you're facing? And that's actually a poll question that I'm going to ask you here in just a couple of slides. And I'll be sharing the results of that with you because we want to hear what your pain points are. And I'm curious to find out. I know today's expert presenters are curious to find out as well. Of course, you want to focus on how will this help the business. The business typically doesn't get excited about storage, but they need storage, right? They need that storage to be highly available. They need to be able to find what they're looking for, and they need to get it fast, right? So they just expect the storage to be up and running all the time, just like when they flip on the light switch, the lights turn on, they pick up the phone is working, and the storage needs to be working as well. So it's not always too exciting, to the executives to present a storage solution, but it's also a critical piece of any company infrastructure that just has to be there and working. But with more and more, maybe I should take that back a little bit. Storage is exciting because we've got so many cool features around hybrid cloud and data availability and data protection and disaster recovery. And, these things can provide just about 100% uptime to companies of all sizes. So it's really incredible what we're able to accomplish today. So after you have a goal, of course, you want to understand what it is that you're getting yourself into. These different storage solutions, what are the features of the storage versus what's the use case for that feature? And I was an IT manager for many years, and it's exciting to get all riled up about the latest and greatest new feature. But you also have to keep in mind, okay, well, how's that going to help my company, right? How's that going to help me? It's like, wow, they can do this on the space station. That's incredible. But also, how's that going to help me in my data center? Let's bring it down to earth a little bit. And then what kind of efficiencies can we gain? For me, as an IT administrator, for you as a storage administrator maybe, or an IT manager or a CIO, what kind of efficiency can we gain from this new storage solution? And how's it going to help not just me, but how's it going to help the whole company? How will this reduce costs? How will it improve availability, increase, our data protection level? Of course, you want to see it for yourself. Seeing, believing, test it for yourself. Do a proof of concept. Try it out. And that's not the first time I think that I say that in these tips here. And that's one of the cool things I think about these events here is we encourage all the presenters to show their solutions, give us some visuals about how this is going to work. And then I'm sure all of these presenters are glad to set up with you a personal demo to show you exactly how this works. And of course, to do some kind of POC if you believe that that's going, potentially going to be a valid solution for you and for your challenges. What to look for in new solutions? I've only got one bullet on this. Maximize the value, the investment. So, and I think that any CXOs are going to agree with that. Whatever money we put into a storage solution, we need to get a maximum value out of that storage. And then fourth tip here, final tip is be realistic. Every company is different. Not every storage solution you see is right for every company out there because different companies have different data sets, different scalability requirements, different availability requirements, different applications and data demands. They vary a lot. And there's no perfect storage solution, for every company at the same time. And that's why, again, I'll come back to it. It's so important to see the solutions for yourself and do some kind of proof of concept. So with that, here's the poll that I talked about. It's on the screen there in the slides window. And the question is, which of these storage challenges are you facing in your IT organization? And I'll share the results of this with you. And I put what I thought are, some of the top challenges up there, but the last option on the list is other storage challenge not listed. And please just drop it in the questions box there, and I'll share it with everyone on today's event. So get your challenge in, even if it's not on the list. I want to hear from you. And I see a lot of responses coming in. Of course, we appreciate that. I will share the results so you can see how you stack up with your peers on the event. I said, actually, I didn't say which of these is your top storage challenge. So pick all the storage challenges that really apply to you. All right. Thank you for all the responses coming in. Lots of good responses. Angie said, does not having money count as a challenge? Absolutely. Absolutely. I guess that falls under storage costs, not being able to afford the storage or not being able to, have budget available for the storage that you need. Thank you for your feedback, of course, as always. I see a few folks indicated other storage challenges. Again, feel free to drop those in the chat. All right, let me share the results of this poll with you. And real tight tie here at the top. So 41% storage performance, 41% storage challenge, 43%, actually the highest here is data security and compliance, followed by 36% at data protection and disaster recovery, and storage costs after that. So thank you everyone for responding to that poll. And now one more poll here before I introduce you to our first presenter, and that is, what's your time frame for adding new or updating existing storage or data management solutions at your company? If you're on today's event, obviously you're interested in learning and interested in potentially implementing something new at your company. You probably have some challenges that you just indicated. So this is just our standard time frame question. And of course, we appreciate your participation in answering this. All right, thank you everyone who responded to that poll question. We do appreciate it. And now it's time to kick off today's EcoCast. I'm excited to introduce you to Mr. Mike Oakes, Senior Pre-Sales Engineer at Atempo. Mike, are you there?
Yes, I am. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Mike. Thank you for being on. Take it away.
Okay, great. So, hey, thank you, and thanks for the team for inviting us here today. So, again, my name is Mike Oakes. I am a Senior Solutions Architect, SE with Atempo, and I've been in the compute and storage industry about 35 years now. And what I'd like to do today with the team here is do a brief introduction to Atempo and then followed by some of our migration and protection projects, sorry about that, for heterogeneous storage environments. So real quickly, who is Atempo? So Atempo, we bring to bear over 25 years of experience in the field of data protection and management. We have about 2,000 customers worldwide and well north of 200 employees now. And we enable organizations to preserve their data ecosystems, their data sets, doesn't matter location, that data set size, or that organization size. And we enable with our solutions customers to protect, store, move, and retrieve business assets wherever and whenever needed in a global organization. So real quickly, some of the challenges, right? So you're probably asking yourselves, why did I preface that slide about Atempo and the data points about us? And it's more coming to a few years back, right? We took a look at where the market was heading and what we believed the market was heading with the explosion of big data, or as we call it, the data tsunami. And what we saw was there was a movement or adoption of hybrid storages. And I'm not talking about someone, hey, I can go buy an NVMe or an SSD and throw it in my storage model. It's more of a hybrid architecture, right? Taking the best of the technologies, and a lot of time it's homogeneous appliances, right, that don't talk to each other, dissimilar, right, whether it be their operating systems, whether it be the platforms they're on, but putting those more in a hybrid architecture, right? So that architecture being able to meet that workflow of a global organization. And what we do is we're able to take not only just different storages, whether it's SSD, HD, HCI, some type of NAS, but from different vendors, as well as multiple file systems, because not every file system will talk, and NetApp doesn't talk to an Isilon, and Isilon doesn't talk to a Cumulo or the cloud sometimes efficiently. And what we do is we do it in not block level, but file level. So we're able to take those file systems, the similar file systems, and have them talk in this hybrid architecture. And that includes talking to cloud. Now, it may be going some type of on-prem to cloud, maybe reverse cloud, maybe pushing your data to the cloud, acting on it, and just pulling back the results to your on-prem storage maybe, as well as we offer with our protection services air-gapped storage. So you get your production separated from your actual archive or your data preservation assets. So this is what Atempo brings to bear both with our migration services in our product and our data preservation services. So real quickly, what's encompassed within this we call Miria platform, and I call these the 4 pillars, so to speak. And the big one we're talking about today is at we'll see at the 3 o'clock position here, it's Miria for migration. And this is more of a time-based service offering. So you basically can rent the servers, or I should say rent the software. I want to be clear about something. We provide a software appliance. We do not provide the hardware. Now you can use your own, you can repurpose VMs. We have solution guides and briefs and we help you with sizing the appropriate servers to use. And we're going to talk about those in a minute. But the Miria for migration, as I said, it's a time-based migration service and it's licensed. So you get our services and it's a capacity and how long you're going to need the software for. And then when it's done, you uninstall and the license expires. The other 3 that you see here, especially the ones at the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock position, these are your preservation products underneath the portfolio. Miria for backup, Miria for archiving. If you remember the tried and true Atempo Digital Archive, same platform. Miria encompasses all of those platform pillars. And they are also licensed, but a little differently. Those are perpetual with support because that's ongoing data preservation, ongoing data protection. And then what you have at your 9 o'clock position is Miria for data moving. Now this is, you'd think migration and data moving is the same thing, and it is, but the difference here is with data moving, it's perpetual. You're keeping maybe 2 distant locations in sync, or your DR site somewhere is in sync, or you need to copy and move data to organizations around the world to be able to collaborate, which is key in today's worldwide marketplace. So these are, like I said, the 4 pillars: the Miria backup, Miria archiving, data moving, perpetual license, and then your Miria for migration, service-based with a fee. So real quickly, as I mentioned, we sell software, right? And there's really 2 key components of that software package. The first one being the Miria server, which you see here. It's kind of at your middle on the left-hand side here with another Miria server grayed on underneath. This is, for all intents and purposes, your traffic cop, as I call them. It basically will command all interfaces to the data movers themselves. It takes care of all web interfacing, collection of all logs, scheduling of all tasks, parallelization of tasks, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, as well as being holding the database, right? So a copy of everything that's been moved, where it's located, and you can search our database. You don't have to go on to the particular pieces of storage you're using or the cloud. You can search our database to find out where something's located, or just ask for it to be retrieved, and we'll automatically pull it back from that location where it's at. Now underneath, you'll see a Miria server grayed out. You can also add a hot standby or a cold spare to this configuration and have HA availability built into the product. Now you see some little disks off to the left. They are basically, this is where your database, and we do logs, so your logs are stored there as well. This is currently running on MaxDB, just if anybody was curious. Now in the middle, the data movers, and their name tells you everything they do. They facilitate all movement from point A to point B, some piece of storage to another piece of storage. And we're pretty open to whatever storages we can talk to. If there's a network connection, 99% of the time we're able to facilitate whether it be a backup, a move, an archive, or in this case, a data migration. And you'll notice in this instance here, there's a primary and a secondary location, as well as looks like 2 groups of data movers. You have data movers inside the primary location, and they could be Linux, they could be Windows, or they could be AIX. And these are, say, taking care of moving data around between A and B, and or maybe you're isolating because you have HR and finance, which you don't want anybody on the same data movers as those. So you can pull and isolate those off, right? And then as well as if we're talking to some endpoint or between data movers, you need to have some type of encryption. We can do SSL encryption to endpoints. We do encryption between our data movers should you need to place them in distant locations. across the globe and have it go across the World Wide Web. We can encrypt on one side, transfer it to the other, decrypt as we receive it, and apply it down to that storage on the far side. And that's kind of what you're seeing in those data movers in the middle. Their job here is pushing data from primary to secondary. Now, we may be migrating from, some on-prem GPFS, Isilon, NetApp, something, to something else on the other side. Could be cloud. Maybe we're migrating to another type of clustered file system. Maybe we're going GPFS to Lustre. Or maybe we're going Lustre to a NAS. All of these are supported under the product spectrum. And then real quickly, just one other point I wanted to make here is pooling of the data movers. When you pool data movers, you're getting a better parallelization. I'm going to talk about in 1 second in the slide coming up. But also you're getting multi-threading, which is extremely important to get the fastest throughput possible while not impacting the user experience. And I'm going to say user experience quite a bit here because not impacting that user workload and user experience is critical in whether it be a migration, an archive, and a backup. And we have some tools that help to do that, and we'll talk about those shortly. So real quickly here, we saw 5 challenges when we took a look some years back at what was coming, right? That data tsunami I was talking about. And we saw 5 key challenges or requirements that needed to be in the product, right? And those challenges started out with a large data protection, right? And that large data protection, encompasses everything from, I need to have a DR in place, or I need to have a backup and archive, but ensuring those assets, because these digital assets, they're the lifeblood, basically, of any organization, right? So losing those is not acceptable. Now, how do you actually preserve those, right? With all of the new storages that are coming down the market, you see hybrid storage is listed here, but it could be any new storage medium now, maybe 5 or 6 years from now. Having a modular design that allows for encompassing of those new storages to be effectively used in a hybrid architecture was critical in the product's design. And then, of course, data availability, right? And that was something that comes from the migration, the copy, sync, and move, as well as preservation. Because no matter where those assets are, being able to access them, being able to share them between distant teams, being able to pull them back or place them somewhere in the event of a disaster was critical. Because keeping that organization's assets up and alive 24/7, 365 was a needed requirement inside the product. And of course, data migration, because you're coming off some legacy storages now. Maybe you're moving to some type of new AI appliance or smart reporting, or you're consolidating environments, taking a data center, shrinking its footprint, right? So I need to consolidate many devices into one, which we can do with this product. I can go many to one, one to one, one to many. Doesn't matter. We can actually facilitate that movement underneath the product set. And finally, the last key important thing we saw here was flexibility and scalability. The flexibility here to incorporate new storages, but also scalability. And you saw me mention earlier on, we had 2 core pieces, right? There was a server and a data mover. With this product, you can have 1 data movers or 100. From a scalability perspective, there's no cost, there's no limitation on the number of data movers that you can use. You can deploy them. You already have the software. It's just a matter of calling that into service underneath the Miria server. So real quickly here, I want to talk about migration because it's key today in today's global environment. And there's really 3 crucial steps. And the first one, of course, is preparation and planning. And the preparation and planning is the bedrock. It's the foundation. You get it right, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a pretty seamless migration and a very happy user experience. Poor planning sometimes, or improper planning, will get you not so good of a user experience. And I don't just mean planning as far as, what's my data look like, right? Or how many files do I have? It's what is that data set's file size, right? How many directories? And this is a big one a lot of times people forget in migration. Understanding how many directories, because each directory has to be read, and when you migrate and written to that new piece of target storage, so all the permissions and the metadata have to be written to that new storage. Now, a couple of 100,000 is not a big deal, but in this multi-petabyte environment we see now, there's typically millions of directories. So not having an understanding of that structure can be detrimental to your migration, but also understanding end-to-end. What I mean by that is, what's my infrastructure? How saturated is it? When can I run? Can I actually migrate during the day? Can I migrate during the evening? What's my hours of opportunity here to do the work? Taking all of that information and then building a plan and applying it in the volume synchronization phase is basically taking, we'll say, 3 days worth of work and putting it into a nice, succinct volume synchronization plan, and you apply that plan. Now, that plan starts out with a full sync of data, and then incrementals over maybe a couple of weeks, a couple of days, depending on the data set, but you're catching up to that daily change rate, but you're also seeing that daily change rate in reports. And this is important because you can actually see how many files, how many directories, how much data, how long it took to scan, and so forth. And at the end, when you go to build into your cutover phase, you can set those expectations with your end users, your corner office managers, to say, you know what, it took me on my last 7 scans, it was 27 minutes to scan, 30 minutes to move the data. It'll take me 2 hours to repoint to users. You take a 4-hour window on a Thursday night. Everybody understands the outage window and expectations. You start, you finish on time, everyone's happy, user experience is uninterrupted, right? Very important, that user experience. So I talked about different tools we had underneath the appliance to help that user experience, right? So one of them, the first one here, we're talking about the data movement. There's parallelized tasks and multi-threading. And this comes into play because we do things a little different than most. And whether it's migration, archive, backup, a copy, sync, and move, we can take a single task and assign a set of threads underneath it. Maybe I want to add 8 threads to it or 10 threads to it. And I start scanning, looking for data. And while I'm scanning, I can hit a criteria that says so many megabytes have been scanned or terabytes have been scanned, so many files or files have been scanned, or so much time has passed or elapsed. Fire up a subtask. Continue scanning, but start moving data immediately. And we can keep doing that, using up all the sub-threads until we reach, say, those 8 threads we've assigned. And at which point we'll suspend scanning, transfer on 8 different threads. And oh, by the way, those threads can be parallelized across and multi-threaded across a pool of data movers. So if I have 4 data movers, I can put 2 threads on each data mover. Now I've got all my data movers in play, as well as all my threads blasting against that data set that needs to be moved. When a slot opens up, we'll suspend we'll actually take the suspension of the scan out, restart scanning again, at which point we hit another criteria, says I found another terabyte of data, suspend the scan and keep transferring. And we'll do this till all the data's moved. In conjunction with that, there's 2 other features you see here, snapshot and fast scan. And these come into play when we can talk to the native APIs on board some appliances. So that could be a NetApp, that could be an Isilon, maybe it's a file system like a Cumulo, like a GPFS or maybe Lustre. We'll take a snapshot, take a picture while we're doing the scan, validate it. The next time around we go to do an incremental, we'll take another snapshot, and with the fast scan, we'll compare them. We'll build a change list, a diff list, so to speak. And then we'll just act on that differential list, move that data, or by the way, if things were deleted on the source that need to be deleted on the target, we'll also take action on that and delete those. What does that mean for the users? Well, I'm not scanning their file system anymore, right? So there's no total tree walk happening there. But we can detect all changes and seamlessly push them to the target side with minimal impact to no impact on the source side. So how does that pan out in a real-world scenario? So in a migration scenario here, in step 1, you'll see a synchronization happening. Now, that has to be a full walk the first time. And the reason for that, if we're using FastScan, or even if we're not, is with FastScan, though, we have to validate that snapshot's good. Once we validate it, we mark it as a valid snapshot, and then we use it on the next step. And that means we move into step 2. We schedule things to start running maybe every 2 a.m. on a Thursday or every day that week. And we'll start to move that data set that's changed. What we'll do is we'll take a second snapshot, compare it to the first, after it's validated, build the change list, move the data, delete the old snapshot so we're not using up excess space on the source storage, and move on to like steps 2, 3, and 4. And we'll keep repeating this over time as we're moving that change rate per day or change rate between migration cycles until you get, of course, to step 6. What you do here in step 6 is you set up and understand now your cutover time because you've been looking at the reports, you know how long things are going to run. You get to your window, you put your source storage in read-only mode, do that final cutover sync. Could take a couple of minutes depending on how large the storage is. Then go ahead, move your users, test, start production up, and now your users have moved and you had little to no impact on that user experience I was talking about before. So real quickly, this is just looking at more about migration. This one here more highlights when you have a generic NAS, we'll say, these Dells off to the left migrating to some type of NAS storage to the right. One quick thing I want to note here, whether it's in a migration for NAS, if you're using SMB shares, then you're going to be using Windows data movers. And that's to preserve those ACLs, permission, metadata information that's inside that particular share type. If you're using NFS, then you do Linux. Now, you can mix and match data movers underneath the same server. That's not a problem. You just pool them differently, and they'll each talk to those particular type of share that they've been assigned to. What you can see here is we have like a 400 terabyte file system, 180 million files. We ran at night with an 8-hour incremental window. Scheduled cutover, you can do per share. You can do every share at once. You can do subgroups of shares, directories under shares. You can get pretty granular on how you migrate this data. We already talked about multi-threading and parallelization, as well as in a pooled scenario, you can load balance. So we're load balancing across data movers, but as well as should one fail, that job will just be picked up from another data mover or the next incremental run. All data that's been processed is already safe and on the other side. We'll just pick up where it left off. Move files while scanning and parallelization, of course, we talked about bandwidth control, limiting the threads, very easy to do. You can change them on the fly and they'll pick up on the next iteration. Of course, the ACL preservation, depending on the type of data movers and shares you're using. One important thing you'll see here is the data integrity check. This is basically, we do an XX#64 on every read. And then just before we commit that write to the target side, we're going to do another XX#64, another compute. We're going to compare. If they match, that's great, we'll apply. If they don't, we throw it off the stack. We don't care why. We're not going to actually commit that write. We'll pick it up on the next incremental run and try again, and we'll flag it in the logs if there was an issue. So real quickly, I just want to show you this, and it's just a GUI here. It is an HTTP REST GUI. We're moving all of our GUIs from a thin, thick client to a web-based GUI. The first one here is Miria for migration. Archive and backup are coming later this year. And this is a global view for migration because most people want to know in a day how much I transferred or how many objects I moved. An object just being a file or whatever it happens to be that we're moving. You notice here there's multiple projects. This is a global view, but you can have tasks under these projects. You can drill in and look at a specific task, how it performed, its logs, and so forth. So all that information is now available, and you can pull it from anywhere in the world as long as you have a network connection. And then real quickly, why Atempo? And a lot of people ask this, but so if you've ever had a chance to read Storage Newsletter, recently they recognized Atempo as one of the only companies that can encompass or take care of 60% of storage vendor migrations today. And that's really because we can take care of whatever file system typically we're talking to. It's a block, not a block, an object. As I said, we are file-based, not block-based. But we can do object-based, we can do file system-based, NAS, doesn't matter. As long as we have a network connection to it or some type of connection medium, 99.9% of the time, we can talk to it. We can facilitate a move or data preservation. And one other thing I wanted to mention, because price is always a value, right? And in most cases, people do migrations, they price them in a terabyte range. And an average, from most people, 30 to 45K to do, a 50 terabyte migration. Now, if you start to extrapolate that out, you're talking about a petabyte cost could be upwards of $500,000 to $600,000. But whereas Miria, in the same scenario, can be over 50% less expensive, and in most cases, we're going to provide a greatly reduced migration and cutover times. And what that means is that user experience I was talking about is not impacted, or very, very low impact that user experience, which is important because at the end, never impacting the users and preserving that data are two of the most critical functions you can do in data preservation and migration. With that, I know there was a lot of information in a short amount of time. I want to thank everybody again, and I'll turn it back over to David and the team for any questions.
Absolutely. Yeah, great presentation, Mike. Really cool stuff that you guys are doing there at Atempo. We do have some questions coming in for you from the audience. While we do those questions or answer those questions, I'm just going to bring up the first of two polls, and I want to call everyone's attention to this. On the screen, it says, do you have a storage migration or consolidation requirement or project coming up in the next 12 months? Simple yes or no question there. So, Mike, let's see. First question that came in, I want to ask you about, and feel free if you see any questions in there that you want to cover. Feel free to interrupt or jump in. First one here, they're asking, can Miria keep dissimilar file system architectures or appliances in sync for disaster recovery?
Yeah, absolutely, and that was one of those key requirements we saw, right? So being able to do a hybrid architecture. So NetApp to an Isilon, NetApp to cloud, cloud to GPFS, it doesn't matter. We can basically turn any environment into a heterogeneous workflow. Nice.
Nice. That's really cool for DR. Next question they're asking here, can Miria support private and public clouds?
Absolutely. So you can do on-prem cloud if you want it for your own private. At the same time, selecting certain data to go to a public cloud, an S3 or a Google or an Azure. Choice is yours. You can assign different, what we call hashes to them and underneath the different storage containers, and they can be completely different on every site, and you choose what data goes where.
Okay, nice. And then next question, besides the GUI interface, what other methods are there to communicate and configure Miria?
So there's a couple. I mean, there's the GUI, which most people use, especially for migration, but there's a CLI. There's also a web API, as well as we do have a C++ API. The last one, of course, requires an NDA, but all the others are freely publicly available.
Okay, nice. And then thank you, everyone in the audience who answered that poll. I've just brought up a second poll. The question is, what additional information would you like about the Atempo solution? And let's see, we've got some more questions coming in, so keep your questions coming. Next one on the list here that I see in the queue is, what about for multiple sites? Do we need one Miria server per site, or what's the architecture?
So no, you could if you wanted to, but it's usually one Miria server controls multiple sites anywhere in the world, as long as there's a network connection. A lot of times people put data movers in each of those sites because of some type of encryption they want around the world, but one server can control multiple data movers at multiple sites.
Nice, nice. What about data encryption? Is that possible with Miria?
It is. So we can encrypt data mover to data mover. We can also encrypt to endpoints that support it. So I'll use Amazon S3 as an example. You're going to go, HTTPS. Well, we can do SSL encryption between your site and up to Amazon. Or if you're using local object or some storage on site that uses local endpoint encryption with SSL, we can do that as well.
Okay, excellent. And then another question, I guess we'll wrap up with this, and that is, how should people get started? What's the easiest way? I mean, you said this is software, so how should people give this a try for themselves, or what's the next step?
So, I mean, the next step, of course, is you can get to Atempo's website, www.atempo.com. There's plenty of information on there, but more importantly, if you want to talk to one of our storage experts like myself or others on the team, we can do a demo for you, as well as you can actually do POCs and demos yourself. It comes with a 15-day temp license that you can use the software to try it. Of course, it's not for production. You use it for demonstration purposes, but it gives you the full suite to test at your leisure in those 15 days. Nice.
Nice. I like that. All right. Well, Mike, I've put a number of more maybe technical questions there for you in the queue. If you don't mind checking those out, I'm sure the audience would appreciate it. A really great presentation. Thank you so much for being on.
All right. Thank you, guys, and thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Mike, and thank you to Atempo for supporting today's event. Don't forget to download the handout that's available there in the Handouts tab on planning the migration of your unstructured data. All right, excellent. Thank you, everyone who responded to that poll. It's now time for our first gift card announcement. We have an Amazon $500 gift card, the first of 3, going to Dennis Thibodeau. Sorry, Dennis Thibodeau from Tennessee. Congratulations, Dennis Thibodeau from Tennessee. We've got 2 more gift cards still to give out on today's presentation after our next presenter, so make sure that you stay tuned for that. And now it's my pleasure to introduce, once again, happy to have Teresa Miller back, Principal Technologist at Cohesity. Teresa, thanks for being on.
Hey, thanks for having me. So things have been good, it seems, today, and I'm excited to be talking about a topic that hopefully will ring true to the audience.
Excellent. Well, take it away.
Awesome. I will do that. So I'm going to go ahead, and we are going to talk about some superhero insights into your data with Smart Files. Smart Files is a Cohesity solution, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So as he mentioned, my name's Teresa Miller. I'm a Principal Technologist with Cohesity. I've been in the industry for well over 20 years at this point, and most of it was enterprise until I joined Cohesity about 1.5 years-ish ago. So files, file management, every enterprise, it has files. You even personally keep files, but we're going to focus on the enterprise today. I'm going to share a few statistics with you before we really dive deep into this. So many of you may have heard of IDC. Well, IDC is saying that data growth by 2025, which is just around the corner, is expected to equal 175 zettabytes. That's insane. We're consuming so much data. And then from a NAS perspective, we are all left in this situation where we need to keep data around, right? We have regulatory compliance, but guess what? 60% of that data is cold. So we use it, and then it just kind of hangs out there because we have to hang on to it. So we really have a lot to talk about today when it comes to your files and storing them and how Cohesity can help. So in terms of Cohesity as a whole, just want to explain a little bit about the mindset in terms of how we can kind of help you out. So when our solution was architected, the goal was to create SpanFS, that's our underlying file system, where you'd have one platform for all your workloads and data, manage everything with one UI, and then have some apps on top of it. I mean, think about your smartphone. It actually sounds kind of similar, doesn't it? But wouldn't it be fantastic to do that with your data? Well, that was the vision, and that's where we've taken things. And the other element of this is I think some of you who are familiar with us think of only data protection. Well, yes, we'll protect your data, but now we have the opportunity to extend that from a files perspective. And I have one more fun fact for you here to be considering as you look at what you have in your enterprise and the journey that we're going to take here today. So according to Gartner, by 2024, enterprises are going to triple their unstructured data stored as file and object storage. Now, that kind of aligns with some of the other stats I've shared, right? But tripling that, can you imagine? I think that's more of a reality than we may have wanted to believe. So here's what we're dealing with in the enterprise today when it comes to network attached storage and your NAS. You have your people and applications. They're all connecting to file storage over SMB or NFS protocols. And then the machines are likely connecting over S3. Legacy NAS today is also, you're going to have your external application infrastructure. And then you're going to have another layer where you put your antivirus, your compliance, your analytics, your data management, all your tier 2 and tier 3 in another essential level of architecture. You have to re-architect this. This is all separate solutions. And then, of course, we have cloud. Everybody's at least taking a look at cloud if you haven't moved there yet. But introduce cloud to the NAS story, and you have to introduce a cloud gateway. So we have a very complex architecture just to manage our files today. Now let's put cohesity into the equation. And I'm going to just kind of walk you through a few steps here to show you how this actually can simplify things. So here we've swapped out the data protect element here. We put in the data platform. And we were architected in the era of cloud, so you don't even need a separate cloud gateway. You'll notice that went away. And then in terms of the machines, the people, the applications, we can actually, with one, we call them views, so essentially like one connection back to your machines, people, or applications, you can connect to that over all three protocols. So for example, if I presented a home drive to my users, if I want to, as an admin, I can allow connectivity to that one file share over S3, SMB, and MFS, all three protocols, which would really simplify management and tool sets needed to manage that data. Now, you don't have to do that if you want to manage those shares essentially on separate protocols. You still can. We give you that choice, but it's very unusual to be able to do all three protocols against one view or share, and so we wanted to call that out. Again, the goal is simplifying things. Now, as you may recall from one of my earlier slides, I talked about the fact that we are layered and we have applications that run on our solution. Well, that's what we're looking at here. Basically, antivirus compliance, analytics, and data management can all happen right within our solution. You don't have to go out and buy something separate and run it on separate architecture. So we do it all right here. Now, in terms of interoperability, I just want to reiterate, because I think that this is a big differentiator for us. I know Gartner has called this out as a big differentiator for us as well, is being able to access that same file over NFS, SMB, or S3. Very unique and simplifies management significantly. So just highlighting that, I think it's important. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about linear performance. So we've talked about some of our great features, but let's talk about the testing. So we've done a lot of testing. We have customers that have adopted this, and they're seeing the same thing. Now, there's a lot here. I don't expect you to necessarily take a look at everything, but let me call out a couple of key things that I think you should be thinking about when it comes to your NAS. So the first thing is in that chart on the right side of the screen, I'm going to kind of go down to the bottom third and just talk about open files per node. You and I all know if you've dealt with any level of file management, files get left open all the time. And then it can essentially create locks of sorts. And then you have to go in and clear those file locks. And there's not good tolerance of having open files, typically anyways. Well, with a legacy solution, a really robust legacy NAS solution, you can have, on average, about 315,000 open files. But with Cohesity, we have unlimited file max. And in terms of what we've tested, we've taken that as far as 1 million per node. And with just the way that things were going, like 1 million open files, can you even imagine? And not having to do anything about it. I think big differentiator. Now, the other point I'd like to call out is right below it, the number of files per directory. So in terms of your legacy NAS solution, you're going to be limited to about 1 million files, which does sound like a ton. But for especially very, very, very large enterprises, that actually doesn't take you very far, especially with the amount of data we talked about enterprises having to deal with. And get this, I have one more statistic for you. So according to Splunk, 80% of respondents to a survey they did actually believe that their data in their environments is very or extremely valuable. So if we're going to really test the waters and make sure that we can keep those files because of their valuable nature, Cohesity took it to, again, an unlimited level. And as far as we've tested, we've gone up to 115 million per directory. So leaving you the ability to scale on those very, very important files. Now I'd like to focus in a little bit more on the application. So again, this was that top layer in one of those very early slides. That graphic may look familiar. So our goal is to, we will work with Splunk, we will work with ClamAV, we will work with these providers, and they will architect their applications to run on Cohesity. So it can be as simple as essentially choosing, for example, ClamAV, that's an antivirus solution, choose it, install it, and now you have antivirus protection for your NAS shares. The thing too is we actually will work with your ICAP provider. So if you choose not to use our application and you want to use our ICAP provider option and leverage, say, McAfee or a different solution that you may have, you can. In terms of other applications we bring to the data through our marketplace, we have anti-ransomware, compliance, analytics, and more. So we'll talk about some of this actually in the up and coming slide. So virus protection, I talked to you a little bit about. Essentially, you want to make sure those files are scanned and protected. Ransomware, viruses, malware, you name it, those files are vulnerable. And so with ClamAV, right on that same platform, you don't have to install anything separate. You get that antivirus protection you need. And then just to reiterate, you can use your own ICAP provider instead, and it's actually very simple through you essentially, in one of the menus, you choose select my ICAP provider, and you integrate it, and you're on your way. So get those files protected in a simple, seamless way. Now you may be saying, well, I'm dealing with files, so I need more insights into my data. I need some indexing. I need to know what's going on. And so we have Cohesity Insight. Cohesity Insight is an application that ensures that you get that search and file and VM indexing that you need as you're working with Cohesity Smart Files. Now, a lot of stuff on this slide. I really want to call out, I think to me it's the most important use case here. I've been in this situation many times in the enterprise. It's the search and discovery, ability to remediate any files that are out of compliance. I think hands down that's one of the most important takeaways from what we offer with Insight. Now let's talk about Spotlight. Cohesity Spotlight, another application, gives you the ability to audit and really know what's going on with your files. So we'll detect and get alerted on file access patterns. So if you have somebody downloading a ton of files to their local system, which I would think you'd want to know about, like that would stand out. Or if a bunch of files had been accessed, maybe they weren't being downloaded, but maybe some form of virus was going on, like there was change to a mass bulk group of files. You could get notified about that. And then the ability to search through and access log files and having this console, this image here is our console, and you have the ability to look at when files have been created, modified, deleted, accessed, etc. And there's actually a drill down element to that as well. So if I only wanted to look at files that were modified on a certain day, it's a matter of just clicking into that to get a closer look. Now with Cohesity Smart Files, we also have a guarantee. Less is more, right? So we're going to guarantee that Smart Files will be more efficient, or we're going to credit you the difference. So this allows you to really try out the product and do some good testing and work with your data, enjoy a better TCO, and within 30 days, if you're not seeing more efficiency with your files, then we will work with you on that. So as we work towards some of the conceptual closure, I do have a few more slides here, but why would you choose Cohesity Smart Files? Well, we're software defined, and as we talked about, you can scale without limits, right? It's very easy to add additional Cohesity installations to be able to work within your environment. Global space efficiency, so we will lower your storage costs. We give you that compatibility, the NFS, the SMB, the S3, all on one view. Very, very unique. Simple to use, actionable search, and we do integrate with applications. One of the things I do want to mention, so on that easy to operate, simple to use, one of our customers I had the opportunity to co-present with at a conference last year when we were still doing conferences, and they shared a really interesting story. So they do have our solution, they work with it, they are very happy with it, and essentially wanted to kind of test things out with one of their interns. They had hired somebody who was looking for some real IT experience. So essentially they handed that person our documentation and asked them to work through it and then recover. And that person, from our documentation, learned it and recovered the system all in less than an hour. And that applies to Smart Files as well. Once you've learned the solution, it's repeatable, like it's the same. Now, in terms of Smart Files and the workloads, so if you're doing content management, you have corporate videos, digital archives, Splunk cold buckets, video surveillance, any kind of file management you can think of, you can leverage our Smart Files solution for. And it doesn't matter what vertical you are in either. We have customers in all of these areas. If you're in healthcare, law, or legal, education, life sciences, financial services, Smart Files can work for you. So just to wrap things up, as we start thinking differently about our data management, wouldn't it be fantastic to have a solution that does data protection, that will help you work with your files, one platform that works even with not only on-prem but cloud, in one UI, and can run all of the apps and services you need without separate architecture and working with separate vendors straight from our marketplace. So essentially that wraps up my presentation, and so I'm not sure if we have any time for questions, but thank you everyone for joining today. If you do have any questions, please feel free to get them in the chat box, and we can talk about them.
Absolutely. Yeah, great presentation, Teresa. For everyone out there in the audience, I've just brought up the poll on the screen that says, what additional information would you like about Cohesity's Smart File Solutions that you just learned about? So get your questions in now if you have a question about this, because we're starting Q&A. So Teresa, let's see, first question that came in here, I think you answered this, but it might be good to clarify. Can I use my own ICAP provider when it comes to virus scanning?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We touched on it briefly. Definitely. So you're more than welcome to use your own ICAP provider with our solution if you did not want to go with ClamAV. I know personally, from the enterprise perspective, oftentimes we settled on a single solution and didn't want to bring in something different. And then other organizations like to have that layering and difference. So completely flexible to use what you have if you have something today.
Okay. Okay, nice. Next question, will this work for data tiering?
Yes. So you can absolutely use smart files for data tiering. So let's say you're not ready to get rid of your current NAS solution. Maybe you've got some time left on, your hardware contracts. In fact, we almost encourage you starting with us in a secondary fashion. So essentially, if you have your existing file shares and you want to take some of that cold data, remember we talked about 60% of your data is cold, and tier that off to be stored on Cohesity, you absolutely can do that. So tiering, I think some people refer to it as stubbing. You can absolutely do that with your files. And, actually one of the other benefits to doing that too is you don't have to change any workflows for your users, right? They just still keep using the file shares they have in place. The back end cold data goes to our solution and they don't even know anything's changed.
Nice, nice. Another question here about auditing. They're asking, do I need a certain application to use your auditing functionality?
Yeah, so in our marketplace, we do have an application called Spotlight. And with Spotlight, you can get insights into all kinds of file changes that are going on in your environment. You'll know who is doing them and have the ability to track that, which I know is so important for files. Again, in my time in the enterprise, I've kind of been in that uncomfortable situation where a bunch of files were being changed and you have to research it. You need to know why that happened. So to get to the bottom of what that answer is. So yeah, absolutely. We have an app for that. Excellent.
I like that. And so what's the easiest way to get started with smart files? Is this something people can try out for themselves or what's the recommended next step here?
Yeah, so you could definitely work with, well, first of all, you could leverage this webinar, right? Go ahead and put something in the chat box or the question box, and we can definitely have somebody reach out to you. You could also go out to cohesity.com. We have the ability to contact us there. If you have a resource locally in your area, we have sales teams across the country. We can definitely help from that perspective too. And then we do have some partners as well, like CDW, for example. You could always work through a company like that, and we could definitely get started with, a POC or just even those conversations to get you some more details.
Okay, nice. All right, well, it looks like that's all the time we have for questions, but a really great presentation. Thank you so much for being on, Teresa.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Have a great day, everyone.
And thank you to Cohesity for supporting today's event. Check out, again, the resource that's available there in your audience console, the handout on Cohesity Smart Files Beyond Scale Out NAS. There's a lot more details there than what Teresa had time to cover in her presentation. So go ahead and download that now, and you can check it out after today's presentation. And now it's time for our final gift card announcement. I'll just leave the poll up there for anyone who hasn't answered yet while I announce our gift card winners. Let's see, we have another Amazon $500 gift card going to Eric Tenpass from Wisconsin. Congratulations, Eric Tenpass from Wisconsin. And our final Amazon gift card going to Brian Province from Illinois. Congratulations, Brian Province from Illinois. If you weren't a winner on today's event, no worries. We've got another EcoCast actually coming up tomorrow. So make sure that you stay tuned for that. If you are a potential sponsor of an upcoming EcoCast, feel free to reach out to us at connect@actualtechmedia.com. And that EcoCast that's happening tomorrow is doing more with less, highlighting technologies that help boost IT efficiency. You'll hear from Rapid7, Pure Storage, and Nutanix on that EcoCast. And of course, we'll have 3 more gift cards to give out. So I hope to see you then. Same time, same place tomorrow. I hope that you enjoyed today's EcoCast event on key trends in data storage from flash to HCI to composable. I learned a lot. I hope you did too. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.